Today, I am delighted to have a guest, Michael Banner, who is the host of the 62 Who Knew podcast. That's actually how I met him. Isn't that an intriguing name? I'm going to ask him about that a little bit later. He has been in the mortgage industry for over 40 years. So as a result, he's a speaker, published author, and near and dear to my heart, he's also an educator. So he focuses on educating financial planners like myself, insurance agents, CPAs, and attorneys, all on the use of home equity during retirement, and now more on the retirement topic, which he considers the double-edged sword of longer lifespans. And I totally agree. So with his articles, workshops, etc., he's been published throughout the nation, featured on Wall Street Journal, the internet, radio, TV, and today he's gracing us with his presence to be talking about the double-edged sword of longer life expectancy. So Michael, thank you so much for being with me today and sharing your wisdom and experience with my listeners.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Marie. And it was such a pleasure having you on 62 Who Knew. We had fun.
Thank you. That name, that podcast name, it's intriguing. So I'm curious about what led you to the podcast and certainly the name as well. What inspired you?
The name was kind of a fluke, like so many things. I was actually in a kind of a think tank meeting about the use of home equity during retirement. Oh, it had to be 10, 15 years ago. And we were talking about, when you get to 62 years old, you still got a lot of life left. And yet things keep getting more and more expensive. And, from a loaf of bread to a head of lettuce to, God forbid, medical, coverage and things such as that. And, a few of us kind of looked at each other and went, it's amazing. At 62, you still have 30 years to go. And we all kind of looked at each other at the same time and went, who knew? A couple of us looked at each other and I went, 62. Who knew? And I think we had a race back to our hotel room of who was going to either copyright that or trademark it. Because I went, 62, who knew? And it just kind of stuck in my mind for a few years before I started the television show, as well as the podcast. But there's just no way to get around it. And people say, did you start this to scare people? No, 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 absolutely not. But to prepare people. But if you're thinking of retire in your early 60s, which many of us want to do, not many of us can do in today's world, but want to, and yet statistics say we're going to make it another 30 years, that's half the time we've been here. And unless you're in literally the top 2% of the financial structure of this country, top 2%, the other 98% of us are going to be working in our 60s, 70s, 80s. God knows how long. And a lot of us are not going to be prepared to have a high quality of life in our 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I know this sounds corny, but that's just wrong for this great country. For people, to work, and go, all right, now it's my time. And then realize that through no fault of their own, just through inflation, my time isn't going to be that easy. And that's not right. So 62 Who Knew was born to help people in their 50s, remind them that it's time to start planning for that next 30, 40 years. If you're in your 60s, we like to remind people, guess what? It's not too late. There are all sorts of products and services out there, and you don't have to be rich. You just have to have a good team, a good financial planner, a good long-term care insurance person, a good mortgage person, a good annuity person. You just have to have a team, and you can have a great last 20 or 30 years of your life. So that was really the birth of 62 Who Knew. I want to prepare people, if I can, for having a great last 20 or 30 years. Why not? Let's play with the grandkids and have fun.
Right. Well, I love that passion and, the whole aspect of the planning part and the team, whether you're, like you said, in your 50s or 60s or beyond, it's the eyes wide open part. You can't move forward or plan or do anything unless you're aware. So the awareness from a team approach, and you do that in your podcast. You have the whole team. Your guests are the whole range. And I'm curious. So you've had, the financial side, the health side, the insurance side. And it's always interesting because we all learn something from our guests as well as the listeners we're hoping are learning from our guests. Is there any surprising lessons maybe that came out so far in your podcast as you're talking with your guests about this double-edged sword?
So many because I'm the first to admit. I mean, I'd love to say, I'm an expert on all of these things, but I am not. I'll put my expertise on the use of home equity during retirement against anyone, and I can hold my own in a conversation on annuities and long-term care insurance and financial planning. I'm proud of myself, but am I some sort of world or national expert in every one of these things? No. So generally, my guests, like you, are usually more intelligent than I am and are much better at what they do than me. I mean, I brought them on. They're the star. I hope to ask good questions and maybe add a little humor or sarcasm every now and then to keep it flowing. But the stars of 62 Who Knew are usually my guests. So yeah, there's things I learned. Tom Hegna, I don't know if you know that name. Tom is the number one speaker on the use of annuities during retirement in North America. Tom doesn't sell annuities. Tom speaks about this. He has 4 or 5 New York Times best-selling books. I mean, television specials. That man's just amazing. He speaks, and you just go, "Wow!" Because he brought something up a few shows ago. He said, Michael, I have so many young people that I know that they're driving that BMW or maybe that Corvette or that Ferrari, and it's got $1,000 or $1,200 car payment, and they make a lot of money. They have an 800 credit score, and they should be proud of themselves. And both them and their husbands and their wives or whatever are driving this $1,000 a month car. And he said, sometimes I say to people like that, do you know if you take you're in your 30s, right? Or 40s. Yeah. Do you know if you take that $1,000 a month and you put it into a certain type of annuity or product like that, you could have more than $1 million in your 60s. So enjoy your $1 million car. You're driving your retirement. And he said he's had people go, what did you just say? Here, let me show it to you on a screen. Why don't you put some of that $1,000 a month towards your retirement in 30 or 40 years? But as Americans, and we are the greatest country in the world, no one will ever convince me we're not. We're in deep doo-doo right now, Marie. We discussed that a little on my show. This great country is as divided as it's ever been, and people like you and I, we can't take sides because if we take sides, we could annoy half our viewership. So I never take sides. But I think we all can agree we're as divided as we've ever been. But as many problems as this great country has, it's still the greatest country in the history of history. It's where you can drive $1,000 a month car or a $200 a month car, or you may never make millions of dollars, but you could have millions put away for retirement. And to quote Don King, and a lot of your younger viewers might not even know who Don King is, only in America, baby. Only in America. So it's out there. It's just amazing how many people don't know.
Well, we don't do a good job in this country of financial education, I
No,
would
we
say
don't.
in general. So that's getting a little bit better. But, a lot of times what we know is based on our family experience. I forget the statistic, but it's 90+%
Yes.
of our financial knowledge and comfort level and personality really is from what we learned at home. And parents don't realize, I think, the importance of that aspect. But our personal experience in general certainly shapes things. And I know you've had some personal experience with
Yeah.
the other part of what happens a lot in retirement is care is needed for one or both of a couple. And so you had some caregiving experience with your father, if I remember our conversation, and
Yes.
I'm curious how that shaped your passion in all of what you're doing too.
It did an unbelievable job on me, mind wise, to reshape the way I think of things. I just had the greatest father in the world. We were inseparable from the time I was 4 or 5, maybe 6, I can't remember, till the day he passed away, which was almost exactly 20 years ago. In the master bedroom in my house, we had a home. In those days, it was called a mother-in-law's suite, but it was 2 master bedrooms. And he passed away with his children and his grandchildren holding his hand. And I always said we lost mom way too young to cancer, And I always said that when the time comes, I'm going to take care of my dad. That's I want to do that. Never really really realizing the responsibilities that actually come with that. I just knew I wanted that responsibility. He took such good care of me my whole life, even as an adult, that it was going to be my turn when he needed it. And when that term came, and I have pictures of my father. This one right here, jumping waves on jet skis in his mid 70s.
Wow.
But he developed a congestive heart failure in his early 80s and had a handful of heart attacks and went down quick. But I mean, the last year of his life was high quality. Watching my daughter cheerlead, watching my son do karate things and break boards, but health was going like this, and we were there to help him. Um, Dad had, of course, Medicare. Okay, everybody has that. He had a great banker's life. Here, I'm going to pitch banker's life. They should write me a check. Um, Medicare supplemental policy, still one of the best companies in the world for that. He was a highly decorated ex-POW from World War II. Okay, so he got unbelievable things from the VA. I mean, when he walked in as an ex-POW, the crowds just parted and he got the best of the best. And even then, the last 6 to 10 months of his life, when I needed full-time care to help me, because we didn't get long-term care insurance, we were ignorant 30 years ago. It cost me, we're going back 20 years, 8 grand, maybe 9 grand a month. What is that today? To help, the help I needed. Um, and I definitely wasn't naive. Dad and I owned a mortgage company, a small father and son mortgage company, nothing huge. We did well in life. We weren't millionaires or anything, but life was good. And I know how hard I was working and how many mortgages I had to write to keep us in 24-hour care, to keep Dad in high quality, to keep making Dad pot roast that he liked and potatoes, or going out and getting him ribs. Because I would say to him, that's not healthy. He would look at me and said, "The doctor says I'm going to be gone in 6 months. What do you want me to watch?
Good for
You want
him.
me to
That's
watch
the
my
right answer.
cholesterol? Is that what you're saying, kiddo?" Called me kiddo for my whole life, way into my 50s, into my 40s. So I go, okay, that wasn't logical. That makes sense. But one day I remember looking at him um, and I was helping him in the middle of the night. He had a little accident, which for again, an ex-POW man's man was very rough on him pride wise. And he looked at me and he said, "I got to tell you something." And this is what I was doing it without help. I said, "What?" He said, "Tomorrow, I don't care what it costs. If we don't have the money, borrow it. Go get help." I said, "I don't want help. I want to do this." He said, "Well, you may want to do this, but I'm telling you, I don't. This is not the way I want to go out. I don't want you wiping my butt. I want you to be my son. Hire someone else to do this." And it really took me by surprise. I just went, "What?" He went, "Yeah, this is not the relationship. You want me to go out? I served my country. I supported my family. I survived POW camp. You think I want you picking me up in the shower? That's not the way a man goes out. Go get help." And he insisted, so I did. And I got to tell you, from the first second that help walked in the door, I took a sigh of relief that I hadn't done in 6 months. I could finally relax. I could, oh my God, even if he needs help while I'm sleeping, there'll be somebody there. And then again, I guess I was naive. I turned around to the healthcare worker one night and I said, "What do people do?" Because I'm not a snob and I'm certainly not naive. "What do people do that can't afford you?" And she went, "Michael, they're in Medicaid homes. And you'd shoot yourself before you'd put your father in one of those homes." And again, I'm not insulting Medicaid. They take care of low income people, they're miracle workers. But she said, "You would sit home shaking if your father had to go in one of those. So be happy that you can go write mortgages and do this." And that's when I got to tell you, life changed. I went to the majority. I mean, I know we make more money than most people. Again, not millionaires or anything like that, but you're telling me the masses that can't take care of their parents? No, Michael. Unless they're in the top 2% of the country. Welcome to our world.
It's a
The
tough,
masses are
expensive
lucky if they
time.
take their, yeah. So it changed the way I thought. I started learning about long-term care insurance, different types of annuities, immediate income annuities, things that create income, things that defer risk in your 50s and 60s when you're still earning money.
Mhm.
So when you get to that part in your 70s and 80s,
Fair.
you have quality of life. And
Yeah.
that's when it counts.
Well, now you wrote a book about this,
I
didn't you?
did. I did. It is called A Gift from My Father. And ta-da!
There you
Now
go.
this is a very light-hearted book. People read this book in 20 minutes. Um, and it really is, if you were to read this book, I'm older than you, but it would remind you of your father, or maybe your grandfather, or an older uncle. For the younger viewers out there, that's what it's going to remind them of. It's a book of about 50 cliches that my father brought me up with. And not one of them are original. They're not Al Banner originals.
Sure.
They're the same cliches that the greatest generation built this country on. I remember being 7, 8, 9 years old. And my father said to me, when you speak to someone, kiddo, look them right in the eye. If someone isn't looking you in the eye when they're talking to you, they're lying. And my dad never drifted from that. They're lying.
Sure.
When you shake someone's hand, a man or a woman, you don't have to break their hand, but a firm handshake. Firm handshake means firm conviction. It's like 40 or 50 of those cliches that people just go, my grandfather said that, my dad said that. But those really were the ethics and morals
Yeah.
that built this country.
Right.
And I also make a little sarcastic comment after every cliche that today's younger generation isn't quite living up to our greatest generation ethics and morals. They can get on their phone and solve the mysteries of the universe, but common courtesy and keeping your word and working hard seem to escape them sometimes.
Well,
And
not a
again,
bad nudge.
yeah, so a little sarcasm in there.
Well, it sounds like a great Father's Day gift, actually, to me. And we're going to
It
have that
is.
information in the show notes because lots of wisdom nuggets in there that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. So, this whole long-term care aspect is probably one of the other question I'm curious about is what are the biggest mistakes that you have seen over your history in all these different areas that people make when they're planning for retirement or not planning for retirement?
Well, you had just said it, not planning. Well, we'll do that later. It's not time. It's not time to talk about that. Long-term care insurance, which the majority of the country, and I mean the great majority of the country, should have, depending on what experts you talk to. The long-term care insurance has somewhere between a 5 and 7% penetration, which means 95 to 93% of this country doesn't have it. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, they think it's super expensive, and it's not. Now, do wealthy people write a big six-figure check and buy a single premium? Yes, they do. A hybrid product, they can. Can normal working people pay for a traditional or even a hybrid long-term care program over 8 years or 10 years or 15 years, start in their 50s, and by the time they get to their 60s, have a paid up policy? Yes, they can. They don't realize that. But I think as much as money, and some people might say even more, it's the emotion. I mean, it's my dad and I. I talk to people all the time. I go, Michael, I'll be honest with you. I know what you're saying, and I remember your father. But I have two daughters and a son, and they'll take care of me. And I go, I know, and I know your daughters and son, and they want to take care of you. But can they? Can they lift you up in the shower? Do you want your son or daughter lifting you off the toilet? Do you want them wiping their butt?
It's good to paint that picture with those details to
Yeah,
force
and sometimes
yourself
people
to
say,
think.
Mike, you're being too strong with them. I'm like, no, I'm being reality. And we have a guest coming on the show early June, and one of my experts, Mark Goldberg, ex-president of Axia long-term care insurance people, brought me the attention to these statistics, which I won't quote because I won't do them service. It is amazing how many caretakers predecease the people they're caretaking for, or
Yes.
at least are so stressed out they get just as sick.
Mhm.
Taking care of someone full time
Mhm.
is not easy.
Yeah.
And we've already had a few shows, and I plan to have many more shows. I think we spoke about it. It has a much worse effect on women
Yes.
because usually, in my case, it was the son, but usually it's the woman that's the caretaker in the family. It's the matriarch. And there are many great books and authors, and we've had a couple of them on the show. Mom and dad, this is not like our grandparents. Mom and dad are making six figures, everything's great. And now they're in their mid 60s, and dad looks in his 401k and there's X amount of dollars. And mom looks in her 401k and there's half. And they go, well, the hell happened? I make as much money as you. What happened is you took 7 years off to take care of your parents and your husband's parents, or maybe a sick child in Arizona or a grandson with asthma, and you stopped working. So you stopped contributing, and then you came back afterwards. So you've come a long way, baby. But because women are the matriarchs usually of the family and the caregivers and the care lovers, it has a great effect on them in their mid 60s when they go, oh, wow, that just didn't cost me emotion and stress. It cost me 6 or 7 years of contributions to my retirement account. And didn't think about that at the time. So, not having long term care insurance emotionally and financially can and will be devastating. Um, and again, people go, why don't you just turn 62? Who knew? Into a long term care insurance show? Because no matter who you have on, you always end up with long term care insurance. You go, because we all are going to get old and you want to get old and you want to know something, you almost kind of want to need it. I mean, you don't want to just die like that, do you, when you're 63? So when that time comes where you get the hip replacement or the knee replacement or God forbid female or male cancer. I mean, we live in times now that 90% of the cancers that we can get, other than some terrible, terrible stomach cancers still, but female cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer for men, breast cancer. You catch this in the first couple of stages, they're like 95% curable. What a country, what a great time to live. But not if you don't have the right help and the coverage.
Right. Well, and they
And,
keep
and it's
saying
just
if
so
you
spooky to think about that.
and from the health standpoint, they keep saying if you live the next 10 years, you're going to be able to take advantage of all the new technology, the new cures, the new preventions, et cetera, coming out. But that also makes me think about, and you've been in so many aspects of this aging industry that I'm curious, not from the health side, but from the reverse mortgage and long-term care industry side. What do you see? Any trends or things that you see potentially changing or evolving or just being helpful in the next 10 years?
Well, evolving, yes. Helpful in that double-edged sword way, yes. Because you really hit the nail on the head. What has made us live so long in the last 30 years, 40 years, again, look at the 80s. I mean, unfortunately, if somebody was HIV positive, that was a death sentence. Now they take medicine and they live forever. We just talked about many different kinds of cancer.
Right.
But the modern breakthroughs, scientific technology and medical breakthroughs of the last 30, 40 years are going to be dwarfed in the next 10 or 20 years. Dwarfed. We're going to look like Fred Flintstone. So I don't think I'll be around. If I am, I'm going to have to change 62 who knew to you're 105 and you're still alive. I'll do something that rhymes. I'm going to
See,
I'm
you've
going to
thought
stick
about
with
this
the
already.
yeah. I'm going to stick with the rhyming. You're 110 when? Yeah. But our grandchildren, Marie, are going to live to be 105, 110, and they're going to live to be healthy. And it does bring that double-edged sword a little closer to your face because Right now, there's a shortage of doctors and nurses. Right now, there's a shortage of healthcare workers. Right now, there's a shortage of food and farmers because kids don't want to be farmers anymore. They're leaving their parents' farms for the last 40 or 50 years. There's a shortage of everything right now, raw materials. I mean, we talk about leaving the planet. Maybe I'll be doing mortgages on Mars and long-term care insurance on Mars, but I'm afraid of heights, so I don't know how I'm going to get there. I'm going to be a very rough ride on that spaceship for me. But again, that double-edged sword. What's going to happen to insurance premiums when we're paying them to be 110? How much is life insurance going to cost? What is medical insurance going to cost if you get sick at 85 and stay what we refer to as on claim till 105? And when I say we, not just this great country, this planet is in for some drastic changes in the next couple of decades. Just drastic changes that I don't think anybody can predict.
Yeah, lots to figure out. But all we do know is that if you fail to plan, you might as well plan to fail, right?
That's
So
exactly
any
right.
planning in any of these areas will only improve the odds in the situation in the long run. So,
Absolutely.
well, I can tell you, we could talk for hours on numerous aspects of this whole double-edged sword of longevity. Who knew
Who
that
knew?
longevity could potentially be a not a positive thing in a variety of ways?
In a variety of ways, yes. Well,
Yes.
if you go to 62 Who Knew, the podcast is obviously on YouTube, Facebook, everywhere you can possibly imagine, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everywhere it is, the bus station, wherever you can find it. That's 62 Who Knew. And what we're also proud of is as we're developing the 62 Who Knew website, where somebody could go to the www.62whoknew, click on the annuity link and not get Mike Banner. I'm not the world's class annuity person, but 62 Who Knew will connect you
Ah,
with the annuity expert in Cleveland, Ohio, or
sure.
Anchorage, Alaska, or New York, or Florida.
Mhm.
If you want long-term care insurance, we will connect you with the best of the best because we want to not, there's so many people that give advice, but then you get done listening and you go, yeah, that was nice. What's for dinner? Yeah, you don't do anything about it. So we want to give actionable advice and then take you somewhere and go, now fix it. We
Now
told you
you're
how, now go fix it.
Now you're talking my language. Actionable
That's right.
education. That's our goal with both of our podcasts, I think. So I can't
Yeah,
thank you
absolutely.
enough. We'll have all of your links in the show notes, and I'm sure listeners were able to grab onto something that pertained to them or that they relate to hopefully not just think about further, but take action on as well. So thank you
Take
so
action.
much, and I look forward to more conversations in the future.
Oh, without a doubt. Can't wait to have you back on the show.